My brothers and sisters, we are a full gospel church. We have no choice in the readings that are given to us on a Sunday. So one time I was giving a retreat to engaged couples, and today's gospel was the gospel for the particular Sunday of the closing of the retreat. Not what I wanted. Love was on their minds that day, and I had to preach on a gospel about divorce. But love is very much on the mind of Jesus in today's gospel. Today's gospel gives us an opportunity to broaden our understanding of the actual social setting of first century Palestine and the Greco-Roman world of which this gospel was written. It was largely a very patriarchal and male-dominated society, where marriages were arranged between the bride's father and the groom and his father. Marriage was not seen primarily as a covenant of love. It was seen as a legal agreement. And Jesus' teaching on marriage was seen as radical because divorce was taken for granted. His teaching went against the cultural grain of his own time. Today's gospel is not about denying that divorce happens, but it's also not a time for us to say, well, times have changed, marriage is only an ideal, we just have to accept divorce. There's a problem in this attitude because if we notice how Jesus reacts, he does not make a judgment about the people who have gone through divorce. He criticizes the hardened hearts of those who refuse to see the divine nature of marriage. Megan McKenna, a spiritual writer of our day, said that Jesus' teaching emphasizes that divorce is a tragedy that goes against the hopes and designs of God for human beings, male and female. The key to this divine sense of marriage is from Genesis, which speaks of a coming together of a man and a woman that is of God, that is divine. It joins human beings in a way that can never be separated because what they are now, their very existence is of God. They are meant to become an image of the divine, not because their marriage will be perfect or always happy, but because what God joins and molds into them is something of God. So for Jesus to explain this to the people of the gospel today, it's not understood because they thought that marriage was only human and not also divine. I remember a person telling me that their experience of divorce seemed worse than death. Divorce is never a victory. There are no winners. And Jesus has no interest whatsoever in condemning those who go through a divorce, and it should be a lesson for us as well. First, don't offer advice to a person who has gone through a divorce. They don't need advice. They need to know that they are not failures in the school of love. They need encouragement. They need understanding. And for some, they need forgiveness. They need to know that God's desire for them is to never be isolated or alone. Second, when we pray for vocations, do we pray for married people? Do we encourage people in their marriages? Do we pray for them and realize that, like in the time of Jesus, in a culture that sometimes sees commitment as out of date and not with the times, that married persons need our support. They are largely out there on their own with very little social support. When we say that the church needs to support married people, that's us. When we say that the church needs to always reach out to separated and divorced, that's us. So we are a full gospel church. And today should remind us that our celebration of the Eucharist should encourage us to look to Jesus, who never shied away from looking at the real issues of the people of his day, but stands with us as a personal reminder of God's desire for all of us to share His divine life with His people now and forever.